Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I've never done this video before, but I thought this would be really fun to do a best and worst reads of 2024 releases. So these are not like my favorite books that I've read all year, nor are they the worst books that I've read all year. But at the beginning of the year, I did do a giant video series on all of the books that were coming out in 2024 that I was the most excited about. So I decided to do just kind of a little summary and review of what books I have read off of that list so far and whether I thought they were good or not. So I'm going to start with my least favorite and move up towards my favorites. Again, this does not mean that the ones at the bottom are awful and unreadable and I hate them. It just means that they were the biggest disappointment for books I was very excited for. So the first book is going to be The Valley of the Headless Men by L.P. Hernandez. I actually sold that book. I don't have it anymore. So I'm just going to have an insert photo of it here. I did pick it up at Little Ghost Bookshop in Toronto, which is a really cool horror-themed bookshop in Toronto. L.P. Hernandez is an indie author. I discovered him, I believe 2 years ago. In a Nightworms package, he wrote a novella called Stargazers that I thought was amazing. It was his debut novella. And I was really excited for this release because I really loved how fun and creative and creepy Stargazers was. However, unfortunately, The Valley of the Headless Men just did not work for me. It is a story of two brothers and a friend of theirs who go up into the deep wilderness in the Arctic, right around like Alaska, in search of adventure because they are trying to connect with the main character's father. Just trying to understand who he was and why he wanted to go there. When they get there, things are not what they seem, and it might be this kind of interdimensional cosmic kind of thing. I'm not really sure. It just didn't work for me. I didn't love the characters in it. I had a really hard time understanding the concept and the ending and the world itself. It was definitely one of those books that I felt like either needed to be much more short and much more vague, or needed to be a full-length novel and really dive into some of the concepts that L.P. Hernandez had touched upon. So it just didn't really work for me, and it was definitely much more of a letdown than I was hoping for, seeing how much I was blown away by his debut release of Stargazers. And I should have full-length, in-depth reviews on every single one of the books that I am talking about today. So if you want to know more, definitely check those reviews out. And one of those reviews that I talked about at length for was Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. Oh, Paul Tremblay. I just want to love Paul Tremblay's latest releases, and I have just been let down time and time again. Horror Movie is a... Horror Movie is a regurgitation of the Pallbearers Club. If you read Paul Tremblay's The Pallbearers Club, which came out in 2023, I believe it was 2023, this is pretty much a copy and pasted version of that story, just through a different lens. This time, instead of being teenagers joining an after-school club at a funeral home and kind of trying to figure out who's telling the truth about these kind of supernatural existences in this kind of like paranormal world, we have college students working on a horror movie and also having this weird, I don't know if things are supernatural or if somebody's just crazy kind of moment going on. This is again another attempt at Paul Tremblay to write his autobiography veiled as fiction, and also throwing in some kind of weird absurdist horror to make you think it's a horror novel, and it's not. It's really not that scary. This was easier for me to get through from Pallbearers Club just because I kind of liked the fast-pacedness of the script. However, I also felt it to be a lot more pretentious than Pallbearers Club. As I complained about in my full-length review, there is literally like 7 pages describing 5 minutes of silence. And it was completely ineffective, in my opinion. I did not like our main characters. I really didn't care for the ending. I was just kind of fully rolling my eyes throughout the entirety of this novel, and it's such a cool concept. DIY horror movie made in the 90s, like, something went wrong, it becomes this, like, YouTube internet, like, cult fascination, and then 30 years later they want to remake it by using the only surviving cast member. That sounds awesome, and yet you barely get any of that. So it was really let down by this one. I'm really starting to think that Paul Tremblay kind of hit it out of the park with A Head Full of Ghosts, and then I did enjoy Cabin at the End of the World, and then just I really had a hard time enjoying anything he's written since. So just leave it at that. All right, next up we have Day of the Door by Laurel Hightower. Laurel Hightower wrote a novella called Below, which is all about Mothman, and I really loved it. And then she wrote a full-length novel called Silent Key, which was a really interesting spin on imprint hauntings, and I thought it was very unique. It had some issues, definitely, but I was really engaged with it. I thought it was really fun. I thought it was really interesting. So I was very excited to read about reality television ghost hunters going wrong while trying to bring a family back together in the haunted house where horrible things happen to them. And that is a really fun concept. However, I really feel like Laurel Hightower, and this has kind of been a running complaint that I've had with a lot of the books that I've read from her, just needs to write more. My biggest issue with this novel is that I liked the concept, but it just kind of felt like a sampler of what I wanted. I didn't get everything I wanted. I wanted more from the reality television show. It kind of gets put on the back burner to really focus on the family dynamics of these this extremely dysfunctional family who blames their mom for the early demise of their oldest brother. However, I felt like all of the children really didn't have set personalities and set character arcs. They kind of changed and developed as was needed in the story, but the story was too short for that to actually work. The mother was absolutely despicable, like just horrifically evil, and definitely scary in the this person totally exists in a conceited, narcissistic, and delusional way. But just the kind of dysfunctionality of all of that didn't allow me to feel sympathy for any of the characters when I just didn't find it. I didn't find that I could connect with any of them. And again, the whole reality television show moment kind of got put on the back burner and forgotten. And I read episode 13 right around the same time as I read this, and that was just a much better way to utilize reality television. And going back to Paul Tremblay, A Head Full of Ghosts also just did an amazing job of using reality television around a dysfunctional family haunted by some kind of presence. And just having read other books that can do this concept so much better, I was just really hoping she would have put more into this and maybe made it like twice the length to really nail the point that she was trying to make. Alright, next up we have Alan Baxter's Blood Covenant. If this looks different than what you guys are normally used to seeing for this book, that is because this is the Twisted Retreat limited edition version of it. It's a very beautiful book. I was very excited to read this because I was obsessed with Sallow Bend last year. It was my second best read of 2023. I was blown away by how much I enjoyed that. So I was really excited to read about a family who lives in a hotel that gets invaded by bank robbers out in the middle of nowhere Australian bush, and things go horribly wrong because the hotel may or may not be haunted by ghosts. This is a very gory book. This is a very tragic book. However, much like Day of the Door, a lot of the characters that push this narrative forward did not feel very developed. The villains definitely had more background than our main characters, but not by much, and not enough for me to find them compelling villains. And I didn't really care about any of our main heroes or good guys because they weren't fleshed out enough. The setting, again, I thought was really cool. I loved the idea of setting it out in the wilderness in Australia. There's a very scary scene with a kangaroo. That was really cool. That was really original. That was really fun. However, my biggest complaint with this is the story has a like parallel backstory of like the haunting happening previously, and it's a very minimal, like 2 or 3 chapter story, but it was far more interesting to me than the story that we had as a whole. So that really bummed me out because I really wish that the stories had been flipped or that they had been given equal attention, because I think it would have balanced the book out much more. Another big issue for me is our main hero is a child. I believe he's about 12 years old, and all of these horrible things happen because he kind of keeps making bad decisions. And again, he's a 12-year-old boy. We can't actually expect him to make always the best decisions in like a fight or flight, life or death situation, but because it was pointed out that he could have made these different decisions and like saved everybody so many times, it just kind of became this like looming plot hole for me that I was like, don't point that out. Please don't point that out. Because that's all I can think about is all of this could have been avoided if one of these characters had just done something a little bit different. So I did like this book, but I was definitely let down because I didn't love it anywhere near as much as I loved Sallow Bend. Okay, next up we have The House of Last Resort by Christopher Golden. This is such an interesting concept. It's about a couple who move to a tiny little coastal town in, it might actually be an island, in Italy. They have kind of won this like housing lottery thing. They move there to be closer to one of our main characters' families, but what they don't know is that the house is super frickin' haunted, and then horrible things ensue, and they kind of become pariahs in this town because of living in their haunted house. And there's like this like beautiful, amazing like catacomb crypt thing, and the setting in this book was absolutely phenomenal. However, I loved All Hallows. I really enjoyed Road of Bones by Christopher Golden, so I was really pumped for this story. It just was okay. It did have really, again, very like eerie settings, and I really felt immersed in the setting of this small kind of isolated Italian town as these kind of outsiders. And I really, really liked the concept of exorcisms and how it was used in this story. But it's another case of, I just think, more development on the actual story and the haunting was needed. And it just kind of ended, and I was like, I just didn't feel what I wanted to feel with a kind of haunting story like this, especially when it's kind of pertaining to these like more ancient beings and these kind of old world European customs. So I just really wanted a lot more from this book, but this goes into my immediate, like, if you want like a fun, quick, creepy beach read this. Like, you're not gonna not have fun with it. It's just not going to be anything mind-blowing, you know? It's not gonna be the best book you read all year. It's just gonna be fine, it's gonna be fun, it's gonna be creepy, and it's gonna have some scenes where you're kind of like, that was really, really disturbing, and then it's gonna have some scenes where you're just like, I don't understand why any of these characters acted that way. So it was fine. It was just fine. Okay, now we're slowly moving into the books that I'm actually like very, very excited about. All the Fiends of Hell by Adam L.G. Neville. This is his kind of post-apocalyptic, end-of-the-world alien invasion story. It is the story of a man who finds himself all alone at the end of the world and finds two lost children during the alien apocalypse and tries to get them to safety in classic post-apocalyptic fashion. You find out the aliens really aren't just the bad guys. It's the evils of humanity too. However, I didn't think that this was that cliche. Adam Neville has been writing a lot of books recently that I don't vibe with. Cunning Folk and The Vessel, they just didn't quite click for me. While they were still enjoyable in a kind of folk horror way, I was really happy to see Adam Neville removing that kind of, I'm writing this to be a script mentality that he has, and going just back to straight novels. This is the best thing I've read from him since, like, I'm trying to think. I was first really kind of disappointed in like The Reddening, so what was that, 2020? So this is like the best thing he's released in my opinion since like 2019. Really, really thrilled with it. The kids act like kids. The kids, I find one of them to be just a little bit too irritating for my taste. But at the end of the day, they do act very much like kids. They do also act like kids in a terrifying, horrifying situation. And you do have a really unlikely hero who kind of knows he shouldn't be a hero and is trying to like live up to the role of being this hero in like the worst situation possible. The aliens are creepy. They are a little like cosmic and kind of difficult to understand. I wasn't quite sure if there was like 3 aliens or like 7 different types of aliens, or if they were shape-shifting or evolving, or if they were different. It was a little vague for me, but still really interesting. I liked how they were able to find people based on different scenarios and like how they operated. I thought it was really well explored in this book, and they were creepy, and I loved this kind of like coastal England setting for the story as well. I thought it was really, really well done. I was really excited by it. Okay, we have book 4 of the Gravekeeper series by Darcy Coates. This is The Hollow Dead. I love this series. This is like the one series I'm like super duper invested in. I have to read it like whenever it comes out. I loved this. This was great. It's an amazing continuation. I really don't want to talk too much about this because this is book 4 in a series. So if you haven't read the Gravekeeper series, I don't really want to give anything away. However, the series story overall is about a girl named Kira who wakes up one day being chased by a bunch of men. She has no memory of who she is able to escape them, but isn't sure why they are chasing her, realizes she has the ability to communicate with ghosts, and then finds kind of solace in this small town of Blighty, where she works as a gravekeeper for I believe he's a pastor, he might be a priest, I'm not 100% sure, and then befriends 2 locals, and they try and discover her past and also help the dead kind of move on from limbo, from this like limbo of like being tied to the earth. It is so great. This book, we finally started to really get answers as to who the big bads are in this series and who they are chasing Kira from the very beginning. It's taken 4 books to really focus on that. Really expands upon the revelations that happened in book 3. Kira's relationships with her 2 friends really develop as well. And luckily, Harry becomes kind of a larger character in the story. Mason, I think, kind of gets more developed. Zoe gets a lot more of a backstory. So I was really thrilled with where this story was going. And I love the series, and I can't wait to keep reading it. So there we go. All right, next up, Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. I know Riley Sager is a real hit or miss author for people. I am usually on the side of I love Riley Sager. So I was really excited for this. This is one of the best books I think he has ever written. I thought I saw the twist coming and I was like a little disappointed, and then I was just completely wrong. Basically, this is the story of 2 little boys who go camping in their backyard back in the 90s. And in the middle of the night, one of those boys is taken and never seen from again. Fast forward 30 years later, the surviving boy returns to his hometown and is still haunted by never knowing what happened to his childhood best friend. And through his couple weeks staying in the town, everything gets unraveled and they start to figure out exactly what did happen to Billy and how the whole neighborhood is involved. It's all very intermingled. It's really well done. It's very twisty. It's very turny. It has some truly incredible plot devices. I didn't see the twist coming, and I just had such a fun time trying to unravel this mystery. If you're into like those kind of true crimey thriller stories, this is a great detective story. Again, Riley Sager is known to kind of play with the idea of the solution could be supernatural and then kind of pull the rug out from under you and you find out that it's not at all. So always know that going into his book. Sometimes he does go with the supernatural angle, but he is mostly known for basing everything in reality. I don't really want to talk too much about this just because I want you to enjoy the mystery all on your own. I read this so fast, I didn't want to put it down, and I adored it, so definitely check this out if you're a Riley Sager fan. All right, and last but not least, I honestly think this is the best book I have read all year. I know I'm saying that like a lot, and I just read it, but I was blown away with this. This is Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. Josh Malerman is mostly known for having written Bird Box, but he's written a bunch of other books. I was not a fan of Bird Box, so I was kind of holding back from reading Malerman because I didn't like Bird Box. But I have now read 3 of his other books, and this was absolutely fantastic. This is the story of an 8-year-old girl. Story of an 8-year-old girl who is being haunted by this thing she calls Other Mommy, and her parents find out about it and try to help her understand what Other Mommy is and get rid of it. It is an amazing, haunting story. It is a very similar kind of concept to Coraline, but I think done in a much more dark manner. Other Mother and Coraline is very, very scary. However, I think Other Mommy is about 1,000 times scarier. I found this book to be truly frightening. Again, it is told from the perspective of a child, so the formatting is really weird, and Bella's understanding of adult concepts, you really have to kind of navigate through. Josh Malerman did an amazing job of writing from the perspective of a child. This story will leave you feeling so broken afterwards. It is a large metaphor for the challenges of parenting and the challenges of having a functional marriage presentable to a child. I think that is very, very key when going into this book, to understand that a lot of this book is very heavily based in a metaphor. Yet, if you just take the book at face value of a child being haunted by this otherworldly being, it is also so unbelievably frightening. And I adored this book. I was floored by how much I loved this book, even with the weird formatting. It takes like 20 pages for you to really get the hang of it, and then you'll just breeze through this book and you will be so sad afterwards. It is absolutely, truly incredible, and it does such a great job of taking kind of a beacon of innocence, a child, and putting them around all of these really morally gray characters and just telling a story through that lens. There are no set heroes, there are no set bad guys when it comes to just the major players involved, but everybody kind of leans into one side or the other at different times in the story, and I just thought it was so well done. So if you were disappointed in Bird Box, or you want to read more from Josh Malerman, like Incidents Around the House, it just came out at the very end of June, and I am so happy I picked it up because it blew me absolutely away. Anyways, that is all for my list. I am currently reading The Angel of Indian Lake by Stephen Graham Jones, so I will have a review up on that. That is the final book in the Indian Lake trilogy. And that was also on my most anticipated list of the year. And I still have, I think, like 20 more books to get through of that list. Not all of them have come out yet, though. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. I try to post every Monday, Thursday, and sometimes on Saturdays. And I will catch you all in the next one. Mwah.